everybody, and welcome to another hair-raising, exciting, fun-filled, expeditious episode of Radiorama, where I show you how to work on, as the name implies, radios, and maybe televisions, stereos, record players, all kinds of other stuff. It tends to run on glowing vacuum tubes from the 1920s all the way up to the 1960s. And today we have a 1951 Philco Transitone. You know, Philco made Transitones forever and ever. This is a model 51-532. It has, let's see, 5 tubes. Looks like it has 1 miniature, and the rest of them are all interesting. You can, the immediate post-war, well, it's not immediate post-war. The mid-40s to like the early 50s, you had this weird period where they were phasing out some certain types of tubes for others. This has, looks like to be octals, loctals, and miniatures. 3 different kinds of tubes. Very fascinating. I'm going to do this in reverse. It is a pretty stunning looking cabinet, and I just got through spending literally all day restoring this big Crossley, so I don't feel like working on electronics. So I'm going to work on cosmetics first, and this is Bakelite. I know because it's got the certain pattern to it, the texture and everything. It definitely is Bakelite. It's not other forms of plastic. This was donated by one of our board members, Mr. Mike Adams, and Mike, we really appreciate it. All right, let's get started. Welcome to day 2 of working on the Transitone, and no, this is not a Transitone. This is instead a Crossley console that I finished yesterday. You're going to see this episode before you see the Transitone, and I'm disappointed that I had it all up and running and was listening to it here in the garage for about 2 or 3 hours, and then I started smelling something, and stupid power transformer just melted, basically, and I'm not sure why. The fuse didn't blow in time to catch it, but bottom line, I'm going to have to put a new transformer in this guy, which is really annoying. But let's talk about the actual radio that this episode's about, which is, again, this Transitone. I did get it polished up quite nicely, and with the back off, I was able to confirm, yes, there is no filament. It's on right now, and you can see nothing is happening. So I'm going to start with the 2 most commonly failed tubes, which is going to be these 2 guys, the 35Z5 and the 50L6. I don't feel like getting out my tube tester, but if it's going to be a failed tube, there's a higher chance that it's going to be one of these 2 guys, so I'll just plop 2 new ones in it just to see if that fixes it. At least gets the filaments going. Otherwise, I'll just take it out of the cabinet and we'll start doing some diagnostics, or better yet, I'll quit being lazy and get out the actual tube tester and run a test on all 5. All right, well, I found the faulty tube. It's the 7A8, and I don't have a ton of loctals, and I had to do some serious digging, and I found a replacement. But this guy, yeah, it's. Wait a minute. Could it just be the pins were dirty on it? That certainly is testing good now. Very good. Who knows? Maybe I'll need to clean the socket. These types of tubes, these loctals, are so problematic compared to octals. You can see the difference here. That's an octal. That's the loctal. It's a much fatter pin, better contact. These guys, on the other hand, have some of the worst contact issues. Sometimes you have to scrape and sand down the pins and really clean their sockets for them to work right. All right, all the tubes in the set were fine. So either we had a bad connection with one of the loctals, or I am noticing the switch feels a little squishy. It could be that the switch mechanism inside is gummed up. But let's give it another try. Yep. Not seeing anything here. So I think it's time to take this out of the cabinet and take a look underneath, see what. All right, so all of the tubes actually tested good. There's not a problem there. So I'm gonna go ahead and give it a shot again. It could just be that socket was dirty. No, I'm still not seeing anything. I have a sneaking suspicion it could be the switch. It feels kind of squishy, like it's not making the clicking, snapping noise I would expect it to be fully engaged. Or it could be there's a small resistor, and I believe that comes off it's in the series string, and it's like a little quarter watt, half watt deal, and it will sacrifice itself if there's something horrific that happens. If you lose that, then you lose the filament as well. So take it out, take a look. All right, so here's the innards. First things first, I want to get the values off of this electrolytic can here. Come on now. Sometimes you just got to peel this stuff back. Completely ill-prepared for this segment of the video, so sorry. Come on now. There we go. Alright, so I should have the values written on the side here. We have, let's see, orange. Can't tell what that says. Orange. Is it 50 or 80? No, it's 30. All right, orange is 30 microfarads, blue is 25, red is 20. Negative is, of course, common black wire. The other thing that I need to do is try to figure out which one of these caps is the grounding cap, meaning the cap that attaches one end of the AC line to chassis, because I know this is a floating chassis. It's not a hot chassis. People get those terms confused. Hot chassis literally means that one end of the AC cord directly goes to the chassis. Set like this has a floating ground, meaning it's going through a capacitor to chassis. I might have to look at the schematic. I don't know why this is not super obvious. It's always something directly going to eventual ground. A lot of things are kind of buried in there, though I can't really see that great. So I'll start the recapping job by replacing these three values. I'm just going to replace them with 47 microfarad 160 volt capacitors. Usually just after that the set will work, so we will test it after I do that. Actually, I just think I found the ground. I think it's this guy, because that goes there. Where else does it go? Maybe they're using that as... I needed to shut up and look at the schematic. I'm just guessing here, which is stupid. Alright, the innards has revealed itself to be 100% bone stock original. And I don't see a burnt resistor, that little 22 ohm guy. That's probably the series string resistor. I don't see anything that looks like it's catastrophic, but again, this switch feels kind of funny. Like it just doesn't feel like it's snapping the way I would expect it to. So I'm going to douse it with WD-40. Yeah, it's already sounding a little bit different. The other thing I do to try to expedite freeing up the grease is to heat one of the terminals on it, because that'll get transmitted into the switch itself. So all I'm doing is just melting the solder. I should have turned my iron on earlier, but whatever. And you just want to kind of go both contacts. Yeah, I'm not sure if you can hear that, but it's starting to sound really different than what it was. Aha, I can feel the difference now. Yep, that feels more like a switch. Oh, I hate this style of antenna. God damn it. Quit. Alright. Now let's plug her in. Plug it into my isolation transformer. Go ahead and turn it on. Ah, there we go. Pilot lights on. And we're getting filament. This is probably not going to work. It's got the original electrolytics in it, which are probably fried. Yep. That is the sound of failed electrolytic capacitors. But we're in a good position now. We've got our filaments and power back again, and everything inside there looks bone stock original. So this will be probably a straightforward recapping job. Okay, so what I've done is replace the electrolytics, and I did find what the grounding cap was. It was just kind of hard to see. It's kind of the orangish mustard looking one that I already replaced. Anyway, it's going to a leg that's on the terminal strip to chassis ground, so I went ahead and replaced that to get it out of the way. And what I've done is we have two electrolytics over here with their common negatives added together to put on the common negative over here, and then in reverse, because I didn't have room over here, this is where the other electrolytic was supposed to go. Instead, I ran its negative all the way over here, and its positives. Positive goes back to the what is that going to? Output tube. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and plug in my isolation transformer. I'm probably not going to pick up anything because I have no antenna, but I just want to see if that got rid of the AC hum noise. That sounds terrible. Oh boy. Yeah, that was not good. That sounds like something's really unhappy in there. Kind of actually sounds like AC hum. That's what it sounds like serious AC hum. I think I've put everything in here the correct way. I'll tell you one thing, I don't like the way this soldering job on this cord is. It's just hanging by a thread. Whoever replaced this guy did a pretty terrible job. In fact, I wonder if that was touching that. Looks like we've got a solder blob over here. Well, it's going between those two pins. So that could have been a problem. I don't see anything else troubling here. I don't know, I'm curious. Try that again. Yeah, that was it. It's not doing that anymore. All right. Before I forget, I am going to resolder that cord. That's dangerous. It's amazing that in the United States, half the houses didn't burn down. Some of the stupid shit I've seen that people do to their radios is ridiculous. All right, well, I cinched that up. It's a lot better soldering job. We have, it looks like, unless there's one hidden somewhere, like Philco loves to do, there's 3 capacitors left. We have one coming off the center tap of the volume. We have this coupling cap here between the rectifier. No, not the rectifier. What is it? Yeah, the rectifier, that's going to 12BA6. And then we have this guy here, which is, what is microfarad rating? 0.003, that's a weird one. So let's go ahead and replace those, and then we can hook up our test antenna. Not test antenna, what am I thinking about? The antenna, and then we can see if we've restored radio edge. Alright, so the rest of the caps are replaced. So, hook up the antenna and see what it does. Alright, it's test fire time, which hopefully doesn't result in a real fire, but I've got the annoying antenna hooked back up. Do a quick warm up here.
Pero también ver si está al 100%, porque tú sabes que walk in and they quote, call select quote.
It's a sensitive little radio, I tell you. Anyway, seems like we got radio restored. I'm going to clean the chassis. I know that a lot of people are like, well, so what? No one's going to see inside. I don't know. I think it's just good practice. At the very worst, a lot of people smoked back then. And if you've got nasty tar-coated tubes and you don't clean that off, it'll smell like stale cigarettes when it gets warm, which is unpleasant. Alright, so the last thing I'm going to do before deciding at least the radio restoration electronics part is complete, I'm going to do a safety test on the chassis. Threshold is maximum of 0.6 of a volt on that scale, the 2 volt AC setting. So here we go. 0.49. So it's well below safety thresholds, just to make sure, well above safety thresholds. Switch the polarity just to make sure that was not the neutral side. Okay, that other was definitely the hot side. That's where it should be. Good. Sometimes these will go over because some of sometimes they add these little weird shields underneath the tubes, and that would cause an issue. Well, the chassis cleaned up remarkably well. It looked filthy, but I think it's just dust. It doesn't seem like it's been somewhere that's had any humidity or anything like that, which is common out here in California. In fact, we only got, we're supposed to get, I believe, 24 inches of rain here a year, and we only got like 16 this year, so it's not good. Anyway, what we want to do now is oil the bearings on the tuning condenser. There's a little bearing there. I'm using a product called Tri-Flow. It's actually a lubricant, I believe, made for bicycles, but it sure does work extra nice on radios as well. So I'll do that. Then underneath here we have this shaft going through the case. You want to make sure you do not get it on the string, because then the radio will stop. It'll slip. You won't be able to tune anymore, which is unfortunate. What I'm going to likewise do is put just a little skosh. Crap. I'm not good at handling the control of this thing. We just want to put a little bit of oil on all the pulleys and everything. And wipe off that excess there. Don't want it to get on the string. Alright. Ooh. Already much, much, much better. Likewise, what I want to do is oil the volume control shaft. This makes it feel a little bit nicer. So as far as a radio, the electronics are done. Now, of course, I'm going to do what I always do, which is add an audio input feature. This one's going to be tricky because the back is not in good shape. And I do not want to put any holes in that cabinet. It's too cool of a cabinet. That would just ruin it. So, worst comes down to worst, I'll glue a switch on the interior, upside down and out of sight. But We'll see. Maybe I can restructure and save the back. All right, welcome back to day, I think, 3 of working on the Transitone. And I didn't film this, but what I did is I wound up taking all the cabinet parts apart so I could deep clean everything. So the cabinet is just about perfect. I want to show you guys something, because every single time I do one of these episodes, I get questions like, where are you getting your little isolation transformers from? Well, the shipment came in today from China, and it's this company here. If you can read the name, it says YHDC. I don't know what's on this site, but this is the box that came in, Power UCPL. And there's approximately 100 of them in here. This will last me about a year. So I do about 200 sets a year or so. But that brings me to the next point of working on this set, which is I'm going to add the audio input feature that so many of you have come to either like or despise. Excuse me. And how we're going to do that is we need to run a audio connection to the volume pot, which is this guy here. Except you don't want to run a line directly in. You want to go through something called an isolation transformer, which are these little guys. So I'll get out all the components and we'll show how that works. Not a lot of room to work in this chassis. I think I'm going to have to add a transformer on the outside. Hopefully there's nothing in the cabinet for that to run into. I don't think so. I think we can put it there. Okay, so let's get to it. Here's all the components that we're going to need. First, we have our incoming audio cable. And that, since we're going to have to mount the transformer up here, I'm going to have to do kind of a tricky loop-de-loop kind of deal. I'm going to come through the case. Well, I'm going over the top of the case here, through the speaker tunnel right there. I don't want it anywhere near that output or rectifier tube, so running it through there, surefire way to prevent that from happening. And then what we're going to need to do is determine which one of the legs on the volume control is the IF, basically the radio signal. I believe it's this white wire, because that goes to one leg alone on the green dotted terminal of the IF transformer. Usually green dot means that is last stage before going to the volume pot. We're going to run this isolation transformer into the volume pot. You see we have the primary 110 volts in, the secondary is 12 volts out. And on this one, the pins that are separated the furthest are the primary. The pins that are squished together are secondary. We're going to run our audio through the secondary, and the primary goes to the volume pot. And basically, someone was asking me, why do I put two resistors together to join my right and left channels? Basically, it's hard on your plug-in device if you decide to do that. This reduces the potential for damaging your incoming audio device. So it's just good. It's just good safety measure. Well, basically, device safety, basically, if that makes any sense. The side is, of course, going to be the negative of the incoming audio. And then we'll need to do one last thing, which is the set has a automatic gain control feature in there. And we found out that if you keep these wired in, that will affect the set's performance a little bit when it's on radio. And so lastly, we're going to need to add a switch that goes from this, which is the radio signal, so we can disconnect the radio signal while we're using an audio input. Because all we're doing is we're just using the set's original amplification section to do the work for us. And we can cut the radio signal and the audio will be a lot cleaner. So I'll assemble all this and then we'll take a look at that when it's done. All right, so we've got the isolation transformer installed. We have the two resistors going to the right and left channel tied together on one end. And then we have our cap and resistor in series going to the top of the volume pot, and we have our switch wire that we're going to use coming off of that transformer. I've got a signal running through it now through a little Bluetooth device. Kind of annoying music, sorry about that, but I swear to God, like, there's a lot of songs that were sung in the area that I grew up in Tennessee, and there were so many of these songs where there'd be some man who wanted to marry a woman or something like that, and she said no, and so he threw her into the river. There's one song called Knoxville Girl that was very popular, and it's just kind of dreary. But I don't know. Every once in a while, I'm in the mood for good old-fashioned dirty bluegrass. All right, so now what I need to do is add the switch wire here. And the back of the set is... it's just not in very good condition. Like, it's been folded over a whole bunch. It's not really sturdy enough. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue the switch for RF, probably hidden up here somewhere. The antenna will be glued back into this interior like it came. I don't want to attach the switch to the chassis because, again, you know, we did take the level of current that could get to the metal chassis way, way, way down. That still doesn't mean if someone were, you know, standing in their bare feet or something, they touched the chassis and it was plugged in the other way, they might get a little bit of a tingle, which would be unpleasant. So I'm going to alleviate that by making sure the switch is physically isolated from the cabinet, or the chassis rather. All right, I lied. I decided that maybe I could preserve the original back, so what I did, you can't see much of it from the back. There were chunks missing on the bottom corner, so what I did is I just rebuilt the bottom corners from the inside out with cardboard, and I reinforced the back. It's now got some more ribbing in here. I've got my switch that disconnects the radio signal. So right now I've got the audio source going through. If you want to listen to the radio, you know, you disconnect the audio from the phone.
Yet another rain chance moves in Monday night into Tuesday. Each of these bringing about the same rainfall amounts. A few hundredths of an inch for San Jose, inland in the East Bay, tenth of an inch to a quarter inch for most of the Bay Area, but a quarter inch to a half inch north of the Golden Gate. Temperatures are going to remain cool.
Crap. We've gotten a total of 16 inches of rain this year here, and we're just about going into the dry season, so not looking good. Anyway, I'm going to put the back on, then I'm going to let it burn in for a while, make sure there's no problems, and we'll call this guy good. All right, well, it's done, and boy, oh boy, you know, it's hard to get Bakelite to look that shiny, but someone took really good care of this guy, because usually best way to ruin Bakelite is to use any sort of abrasive or detergents, because there's a very thin layer of casting when it came out of the mold, and if you take that off, you'll never get it to be this shiny again. So someone never cleaned it, which is excellent. I've got my Bluetooth running through. I bet at night this looks awesome, because you've got this light shining up to the bottom here. It's like underlit numbers. And as I said, if you want to listen to the radio, there's a little switch in the back.
Next update at 6:08 on the traffic leader, KCBS.
Natural disasters in unlimited.
African American.
What is that? Whatever. Never heard that before. It must be the lawnmower station. Anyway, this is a pretty neat looking set. I can't say that I've seen this particular design in a Transitone. It's pretty boomerangy 1950-rific. I love it. We actually had a little discussion. The guy that donated this to us is a board member. And it's so cool looking. We're going to tell him, hey, you know, it's really cool. Are you sure you want to give this to us? And if not, like, he can totally take it back, because I'd keep it. But we'll see what happens. We either might keep it for the collection because it is so freaking cool looking. I've been saying that a lot lately. Maybe I'm just having a lot of more interesting radios lately. Or it'll go to a future event. And if you live around where I do, maybe we'll see you in a few months. All right, guys. Thanks so much for watching. If you have any questions or comments, you can leave them down below. I'll try to get to them. And by the way, someone said that they thought my shop was really messy. And yes, you're right. It is. It is very messy. But that's okay, because all that matters is I get radios done in the end. All right, everybody. See you next time. And all right. Adios. Bye.